us today. I really appreciate it. This is a very important group of individuals, I think. We're going to really need your feedback as we move forward. Before we proceed, I do want everybody to understand that this is a meeting that's being recorded and also posted. And I think that's so that, again, our community can understand, basically what issues that we're having to deal with and provide the feedback that they need to, and understand that we are working on reopening. So I just want to say that right up front. We are still hoping for a full reopening in the fall without restrictions. However, if you are monitoring this response, I think we have to really do a lot of work in developing action plans and contingency plans, and working toward potentially operating under a hybrid model. And we really need, we don't know that until we get a little bit closer, but it's best to be proactive. And so while we have been meeting for the last several months as a pandemic team at a district level, as we monitor this situation, and while we've been involving our state officials, the Department of Health, and also the Department of Education, as well as other districts, I think it's a very, very important. It's become very apparent that we have to have a lot of input from our community, because communities are reacting differently to this response. And also, I think communities have different needs. And so therefore, it's going to be important that despite all these things that we have done up until this point, that as we begin to get a little bit closer to potential reopening in August, that we as a community come together and really put together plans that best meet the needs of our community, our students, and our staff, so that we can make sure that we are reopening, under a plan that works best for our students and our staff and keeps everybody safe while continuing the education that's critically important. So I really, again, appreciate you taking the time to do this. We're going to have to meet fairly frequently, and we'll get into that as we move forward. Again, let me just express from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. And having stated that, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Vaughn. Ms. Vaughn is our board liaison to this task force. So Ms. Vaughn, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Adkins, and good afternoon to all. And I want to echo Dr. Adkins' big thank you to all of you for volunteering your time to serve on this task force. And I know that I not only speak for myself, but for the entire board when I tell you that we really value everyone's input and everyone's unique expertise in what we are doing here. I feel like our best solutions are going to be, for the reopening of school in August, are going to emerge from hearing everyone's diverse opinions and ideas. And we are going to be sourcing these ideas and opinions and insights from all of you. And I don't want anybody to ever feel like, oh, this isn't important, because good ideas are not the domain of just one person. What's going to come out of this advisory task force is going to be not from one single individual, but rather from a single team. So I look forward to seeing all of you here on Zoom, and maybe next month we'll be really seeing each other. We'll see about that. And at this point, I would like to turn it over to Ms. Cindy McClung, who is our facilitator. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Vaughn, and good evening, everyone. It's great to see everyone together and really excited to see the work that this task force is going to do. So we've had a little bit of a technical difficulty. So I am now in Ms. Stillwell's office and Mr. Eldon is going to run the PowerPoint for us. So if Mr. Eldon can bring that up on the screen. Thank you so much. So as you can see, we have a few objectives for our meeting today. And the first one is just to meet each other, to see who else is on this task force. So we'll take a few minutes to do some introductions. Then understanding what is the purpose of the task force? Why have we all been brought together? And what are the guiding principles that will define our work? Then we want to understand the objectives and what are the indicators of success so that we know if we've done what we set out to do. And finally, we want to establish some future meetings for at least the next 3 weeks. Thank you, Daryl. If you can go ahead and switch to the next one. Thank you. So you'll see the list here. And what I'd like to do is, you'll see we're in alphabetical order. So when the first person will introduce yourself, tell the group that you are representing, and then we'll just keep right on going. And you'll see they start and go down in columns. So yeah, I know I will not get this right. Yamasil Bermudez, if you would please introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Yamasil Bermudez. I'm the representative for the East Zone.
Thank you. Marshall. Is Marshall Bauer with us this evening? Okay, I don't hear him. Marshall, if he is with us or if he is not, he is representing the Foundation for Lee County Public Schools.
Can you hear me now?
There you are. Thank you, Marshall.
Somebody had the audacity to try to mute me. So Marshall Bauer, as Cindy said, I'm the president and CEO of the Foundation for Lee County Public Schools and a reformed lawyer from this area. I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you and welcome. Mr. Burnside.
Good afternoon. I'm Carl Burnside, principal of Dunbar High School and representing high school principals.
Thank you. Ms. Clark.
Hi, I'm Brenda Clark. I'm one of the parents members of the group.
Thank you. Mr. Daly.
There, I'm Kevin Daly. I am currently the president of the Teachers Association of Lee County, and prior to that, I was a 20-plus year employee of the district at Royal Palm Exceptional School, and we represent the 6,000 certificated staff members, non-instructional counselors, nurses, social workers, and then, all the teachers in the district. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to see so many familiar faces, and look forward to working with the group and getting a plan together.
Thank you. Mr. Dozier. Is Mr. Dozier with us this evening? Okay, we're going to move on. And Mr. Dozier, if you are there and get unmuted, just speak up. Captain Fields.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Fields. I'm representing Fort Myers Police. I apologize I don't have a camera, but this is probably the better look for me without the camera.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Goodson.
Hello, Marcus Goodson. I'm the Executive Director of Lee County Housing Authority, and so hopefully I can represent the students that live in our communities in North Fort Myers area as well. Glad to be a part of the task force. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. I'm glad you're here. Okay. Ms. Gossett.
Hello, I'm Brooklyn Gossett, and I guess now I'm a former 8th grader at Calusa Middle School.
Tonight, Ms. Haas.
I'm Angela Haas. I'm the South Zone parent representative, and I'm also a first grade teacher at Colonial Elementary School.
Thank you and welcome. Ms. Harris. Julie Harris may not be with us this evening. So again, if you're there and just have not been able to unmute, just hop in when you get a chance. Mr. Hertz.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Hertz. I'm the current chairperson of the District Advisory Council. I'm also the parent of a rising 8th grader and rising 10th grader here in our schools. And my day job is an attorney, so I'm not reformed like Mr. Bauer. I'm still going at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Mrs. Lehner. Melissa Lehner is principal of Bonita Middle School and is representing middle school principals.
Sorry, Cindy, it sounded great when I said it to myself, so maybe when I say it to you guys, it'll sound even better.
There you go.
To represent the middle school principals, Melissa Lehner, principal, Bonita Springs Middle.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, whoops. There we go. Our slide switched on us. Mr. Lemaster. Dr.
Hi, Scott Lemaster, Manatee Elementary School, representing elementary school principals.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see
Ms.
you.
Weinberger. Jacqueline Lineberger, as also one of our parent representatives. So again, if you get on a little bit later, just let us know.
It's Jacqueline Lineberger. I'm representing the East Zone. And I'm also a guest teacher at the East Zones.
Wonderful. Thank you. Glad to have you.
Nice to be here.
Ms. McWilliam.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Amy Jane McWilliam, and I'm a West Zone parent. I have a child in elementary school, another one in middle school, and another one in high school. And I'm also the youth services coordinator for the Lee County Library System. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
And very busy.
And very busy.
Thank you. Ms. Michael.
I'm Jamie Michael. I'm president of the Support Personnel Association of Lee County, and we're the union for all of the support employees, from the bus drivers to the custodians to the secretaries to the paras. So we're everywhere in the district.
Nice to have you. Thank you. Mr. Parrish.
Harlan Parrish, representing the business community from Finemark National Bank and Trust. And I'm also currently the chair of the board for the Foundation for Lee County Public Schools. Looking forward to participating on this committee.
Thank you. Nice to have you. Okay, let me see if I can move because last names are being cut out. Here we go. Okay, Lieutenant Quaipo.
This is Rick Parfit from the Safety and Security. Lieutenant Ryan Lowe is in for him today, but he has no camera, but he can hear us. He has no camera or microphone, so he sent me a message.
Thanks for letting us know. Thank you. Okay, and welcome, Lieutenant. Okay, Dr. Saunders.
I'm not sure if Dr. Saunders is going to be able to hop on or not, but I'm one of her partners, and we're both with Lee Health.
Wonderful.
Are you there?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'm with Pediatric Infectious Diseases, and we're both with Infection Prevention and Quality at Lee Health. So we'll be kind of covering for each other on this task force.
And what was your name? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
This is Dr. Stovall. Actually, Dr. Saunders is here too. She was trying to respond and apparently couldn't. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you.
Hi, and it's nice to have both of you with us. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Smith.
Hello, I'm Sharniqua Smith. I'm the Executive Community Nursing Director at the Florida Department of Health in Lee County.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Ms. Stewart. Sedona Stewart. Okay, that is one of our student representatives from the South Zone. Not there. Okay, okay, and Ms. Vervat.
Hi, Crystal Vervate, and I am a parent representative.
All right, thank you. So those are our community and parent student representatives. On the next slide, you're going to see the team from our district that has been working as part of this task force. Right. And so we will also introduce ourselves so that you can put a face with these names. Ms. Bowen.
Hi, I'm Teresa Bowen. I am the Director for Exceptional Student Education.
Thank you. Ms. Brooks.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Lori Brooks, and I'm the Director of School Counseling and Mental Health Services, and I look forward to collaborating with all of you.
Thank you. Ms. Kennedy.
Good afternoon. I'm Terry Kennedy, and I'm Director of Grants and Program Development, and I am here representing charter schools.
Thank you. Mr. Davis. Okay, Mr. Davis may not be with us at the moment. He is our Chief Information Officer. Dr. Desamore.
Hello, my name is Amy Desamore. I'm the Chief Financial Officer with the school district and look forward to working with each of you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan.
Hi there, I'm Jessica Duncan, Executive Director for Student Services.
Thanks. Mr. Eady.
Good evening. My name is Jared Eady. I serve as Director of Diversity and Inclusion and AVID, and thanks so much for your participation.
Thank you. Ms. Lancaster.
I am Irma Lancaster, Director of Strategic Communications, and welcome everyone, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Lloyd.
Apologize for not having a picture. We're switching offices here. I'm on an older computer, but I am the Director of Transportation. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Roger. Good to see you. And I'm Cindy McClung. I'm the Director for Continuous Improvement. Ms. Messenger is brand new to our team.
Yes, a week in. I'm the Director of Food and Nutrition Services, and I'm happy to be part of this task force.
We are happy to have you join us. Thank you. Mr. Malloy, another new member to our team. Adam might not be with us this evening. He is our new coordinator for community involvement and is working out of our communications department. So we're really excited to have him on board as well. You heard Mr. Parfit's voice a moment ago, but I'll let him reintroduce himself.
Yes, Rick Parfit. I'm the Director of Safety and Security for Lee County Schools. Also, Lieutenant Lowe is with the Lee County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you. Dr. Pruitt.
Hi, I'm Angela Pruitt. I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer.
Thank you. Mr. Rothenberg.
Cindy, this is Trey Davis, Chief Information Officer. Look forward to working with everyone. I am here, responsible for technology, strategy, and operations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for hopping in there. Okay, I'm not sure that Will is with us.
I'm here.
Will,
Sorry, I had it on mute. I'm Will Rothenberg. I'm Director of Compensation and Labor Relations for the district.
Thank you. Dr. Savage.
Hi there, I'm Ken Savage. I'm the Chief Operations Officer, and it's a privilege to support the important work of this task force. Thank you all for your service on this.
Thank you. Dr. Spiro.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Jeff Spiro, and I am proud to be part of this task force, and thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you. And Lauren Stillwell, whose office I have stolen.
Hey, everybody. We were having some technical difficulties, so Cindy and I are sharing. It's nice to see all of you. Thank you for sharing your time, talents, and expertise with us.
Thank you. And Lauren is our Chief of Staff. Mr. Williams. Do you know if Brian's here? Okay, Brian Williams is our Chief Legal Counsel, who will also be joining us on the task force. And last but certainly not least, Ms. Whip.
Hi, I'm Beth Whiff, and I'm the Health Services Coordinator for the Lee County School District.
And as you may imagine, we have gotten to know Beth really well over the last 8 weeks. So we've been really pleased and proud of the work that she has done with us.
Thank you, Cindy.
So go ahead.
Cindy, we also have Mr. Isaac Dozier. He is on the call, but he's having issues of being unmuted, but he is the Director of Community Development for the City of Fort Myers Housing Authority.
Thank you, Jared, and welcome, Mr. Dozier. Thank you. Well, thank you. I know it's not quite the same as being able to look around the table and see the faces, but now at least you have a general idea of who's here and a little bit of what we look like. So thank you. Hopefully we'll get to meet in person before too long. Mr. Eldon, would you move on to the next slide, please? There we go. So why have you all been gathered together tonight? And here's our purpose. As you see, the task force's main responsibility will be to make recommendations to the superintendent around the safe reopening and continued operation of schools during this pandemic. It's really important to us as a district to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the community. And hopefully this representative group can help us as we move forward, making the best decisions so that when we do open our schools, we're doing it in a way that is helpful to our students and to our families. Okay, thank you, Mr. Eldon. As we do this, we'll have some guiding principles along the way. So, Mr. Eldon, if you bring up the first one, to us, this is all what education is all about in Lee County, making sure that all of our students have equitable education. And that has really become a challenge in the age of going virtually overnight. So making sure that we have students who have access to all of the equipment that they need, making sure that our students with special needs are getting the services that they need. And so going forward, how do we make sure that every student has access to that equitable education? Thank you. And of course, public health and safety. That's why we are where we are right now, making sure that we're doing everything possible to keep our students, our employees, our families safe and healthy. So we need to know that the plan that we come forward with is rooted in sound medical judgment. It's driven by those health metrics so that everyone feels safe. And obviously, we need to keep in mind that we do have a budget. So fiscal prudence is going to be very important. So we need to make sure that the plan that we move forward with supports the highest practical level of operation while still maintaining that equitable education and public health and safety. And then our fourth principle is maintaining public confidence. It's really important to us that people know that we are committed to delivering a world-class education to our students. So we need to make sure that we have a very effective communication strategy so that everyone understands what we are doing and why we are doing it. Thank you. So our objectives for this committee, obviously reopening opening schools safely and providing us with related services. Making sure that our procedures and protocol are the right ones for where we are at that time. And as you know, things are changing on a daily basis. And we've just moved into phase 2 of the governor's plan. We don't know what phase we'll be in when schools are set to open in August. So we have to be prepared for a variety of options. Determine the supply and resource requirements and the cost for implementation. Because when we think of opening schools, sometimes we just think about, okay, let's get the kids in the classroom and get the teachers in front of them. But that requires a lot of other things to happen. Transportation and food service and making sure our buildings are maintained and making sure that our cleaning is done properly. So we have a lot of things to consider as to move forward. And then how are we going to allocate the timeline? And what are the processes that we're going to use along the way so that we're ready to open on opening day? This is a big one, that communication plan. It's really hard to make sure that everyone knows what they need to know in a timely manner when things change minute by minute. So we want to make sure that we have a very comprehensive plan, that everyone understands what we're doing, that they understand that we are following the guidelines that are in place at that time, and that we're opening in the most equitable and safe manner possible. And then what if we get a hurricane? So we need to be thinking about those contingencies. What happens if we have a second wave? If the governor says, okay, we're going to close down schools for another 2 weeks, what are we going to do? So we need to have plans in place for all of those unexpected contingencies. And then last but not least, looking at those new policies, the policies we currently have in place, are they in alignment with the plan? Do we need new policies, or do we need to look at ones that we have and possibly amend those? So those are the objectives that we are working toward. Here's some of the things that we have to consider as we do that. So is it possible that we will need to have a hybrid model? I mean, as Dr. Atkins said at the beginning, we want to open school in person, everyone there as close to our old normal as possible, but we don't know if that's going to be possible right now. So what do we need to be thinking about? And one of those may be looking at different hybrid models. What about distancing? We've all become quite aware of staying 6 feet apart from people. But on a bus, that's really difficult if you're going to have more than 10 people on the bus. So what do we need to do to make sure that we're having the space that we need and being very strategic about how we're using the space that we have? And then again, transportation. So do we need to modify our bus routes? Do we need to modify the number of students on the bus? Those are all things that we have to keep in mind as we move forward. What protocols will we follow? So we need to think about what are the recommendations of our local health department, what are the recommendations of our governor's task force, and then what are the wishes of our community in alignment with those recommendations? So we have to think about, do we monitor people coming into the buildings? Do we need to wear masks? How do we make sure that we have hand washing supplies readily available to people so that, and encourage them to use those? Do we need to think about how many students are in the restrooms at a time? So there are a lot of things that we need to keep in mind as we move forward with those protocols. The disinfection and cleaning protocols. So making sure that when you walk into the building that you feel safe, that we're making sure that everything is cleaned as it's being, as in compliance with those safety recommendations. Mr. Eldon, can you click again, please? Okay, I think we're on the right slide now. So we talked about those things that we need to keep in mind to meet those as we work toward meeting those objectives. So how will we know if we're there? So some of the indicators that the Florida Department of Education has talked about are keeping Florida's entire education family safe and healthy, making sure that that everyone in Florida feels comfortable returning and that we feel like our students are safe and ready to succeed, focusing on those outcomes, especially closing the achievement gaps. And we need to talk about not just achievement gaps between our different groups of students, but also between the students who have had access to virtual education and those who may not have had that as much access. So we need to look very closely at those gaps as students walk through the door. Thank you, Mr. Eldon. Thank you. And then making sure that our educators feel prepared. So do they have the skills that they need? Are they equipped to be successful in the classroom? When these are met, then we know that everyone in our community will be able to return to the workforce. It's really hard to work if your child needs care and schools aren't open. So these indicators will let us know that we've done the job that we've set out to do. Okay, before we move on to our meeting dates and times, Dr. Atkins has a few points that he would like to address concerning what have we been doing since March, because we've been really busy here. Dr. Atkins.
Thank you, Cindy. Yeah, I think I indicated some of this in the front, but just to make sure we've got it all covered, really since we first learned about this, the impact of this virus on our school district, the potential actions that the state was going to do, we started meeting as a team back in March, and that's pretty much the district team that you saw on the earlier slide. That group of individuals has been meeting regularly, there for a while. It was almost daily. And then, we're down to, about three times a week at this point. We've also been in contact very frequently with the Department of Education. And also, we have also been in contact. I know Beth has been in contact with the Department of Health on a regular basis. And I will say that the Department of Education has provided us pretty good guidance up to this point. So we've been very, very appreciative of that in terms of the opening and closing of schools and distance learning, those types of things. We've also been working together as superintendents across the district. We actually had a conference call earlier this week, and we've been conferencing on a regular basis. And that's so districts can stay in alignment and we can also share best practices. So that's been very, very helpful as we move forward. We've been working to ensure that in our own organization, we're following CDC guidelines and also our local health department recommendations. And that's not only just within our school district, but it's also with some of our outside contractors. Like just today I was on a work site, 2 work sites actually, and our new high school, Gateway High School. You're walking around and people are wearing gloves, glasses, masks. They've got the proper protective gear and are doing social distancing as best they can on the work site. So we are certainly doing that. We continue to work with a local emergency operations center with the county. And we have developed our own internal pandemic response team, which again, those members were provided earlier. And we continue to communicate with our community via video, and also we've been putting out really updates regarding our COVID response there for a while on a daily basis, and now they're coming down to once a week that will go out to our community and our employees. And again, that's been a large effort that we have seen on the part of our staff, and I just want to appreciate Chief of Staff Lauren Stillwell, who's headed that up. And then you all know just some of the action of our valiant employees during this time. Our teachers and also our food service workers who've also been very, very active in response to this. So we have been busy trying to respond to our community needs by expanding, food delivery sites and things such as that, and trying to communicate. But if there's ways that we can do it better, that's again why we have you guys as a part of this task force, because it's not only about putting together a good plan for what comes forward in the fall, but it's also how can we make sure that we're reaching our community in a way that people understand, that we're meeting community expectations, so that we can have a safe and successful reopening in August.
Great, thank you, Dr. Atkins. So before we move back to the PowerPoint, because I can't see you all when it's up, we've talked about future meeting dates. First thing is, if you can give me a thumbs up, does this time work for you? 4 p.m., is this a reasonable time? Looks like it seems to work for everyone, okay? And we were wondering about Tuesdays, because we would like to meet once a week for the next 3 weeks. And if we could do that on Tuesday, if that works for everyone. Again, give me a thumbs up if that date will work, that day and time will work. Okay, I see a couple of waffles.
Yes, for me.
Okay, and a...
For me, it depends on how long the meeting is, because I have a class that starts at 5.
Okay, that was Mr. Burnside. Okay, So maybe we'll send out a quick little survey tomorrow and see if there is a day that works better for everyone. And if not, then we will, we'll go with as many people as we can get, the majority, but we'll send out a quick survey tomorrow and see what works best.
I can always do at least an hour on Tuesdays. That's my issue.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Carl. Okay. All right. Mr. Eldon, if you'll go back to the PowerPoint now. Thank you. And you can go ahead to the next slide. So we'll be emailing out those calendar invites, but we'll wait until we get the survey. We realize it is an aggressive schedule, but we want to be able to get plans in place because, boy, August is going to be here before we know it. So we'd like to be able to have something to take to the board, possibly at the end of the month, as a not a final plan, but at least to get some input back. The next meeting that we have, you will see some tentative models that our team has been working on. You'll also see results from 2 surveys. We have a family feedback survey that has been out since since Sunday. And then we have a staff survey that went out yesterday. With the family survey, we have over 21,000 responses. With the staff survey, we had over 3,000 as of 1 o'clock today, so pretty good for less than 24 hours. So we'll be sharing those results with you. So I know you're wondering, so then what are we going to do? And we will kind of figure that out together. When you see the results of the surveys, and then when you see the models, we want your feedback on those. So what makes sense to you? What's most important to you? If we look at some different models, which one do you think is the most viable model? And which one do you think works best for the people that you will be representing? So you will have work to do starting next week. This week was more of a get to know each other, figure out what this is all about, and what do we need to do moving forward. So Mr. Eldon, if you'll go ahead to the next slide. This is time now for any questions that you may have. And actually, if you'll take this down, Mr. Eldon, so I can see everyone, that would be great. So if you have questions, if you'll just put a hand up, I will call on you. There's also a chat box that is open. Okay, Mr. Hertz.
Actually, that was my comment. It looks, at least on my screen, the group chat is disabled. And I was going to suggest that we enable that for these meetings. In some previous Zoom meetings with Dr. Atkins, I thought the chat worked really, really well. And I'll volunteer Dr. Sparrow is a great moderator to read the chat. But I found that a great way to put information in and keep things moving in these types of meetings. It looks like maybe it's been enabled now. Wonderful.
Yay. Thank you, Mr. Eldon. Thanks, Scott. Other questions, comments? And I'm going back and forth to pages, so if I miss you, just speak up.
I have a question.
Okay.
I was already contacted by Wink News, and I was, I kind of was shocked. So I told her, at the same token, I'm not sure at this point what, we're talking to the media about at this point. So I didn't want to make any sort of comment to her without the approval of, you guys.
Thank you. I'm going to ask our Chief of Staff to address that.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for the question. I'm not surprised. They typically are pretty quick on the ball when it comes out to news releases and all of that kind of stuff. So please feel free to give myself, you have my email, everybody should have my email, or you will after tomorrow, or Irma Lancaster, who is our Director of Strategic Communications. You can give us a shout, and then we certainly can help direct you. And if you don't feel comfortable speaking with them, you are certainly not on our end mandated to speak with them. You are more than welcome to refer them to myself or to Irma. But if you would like to speak to them and you just want to call us for some tips and everything like that, both of us have a well, I'll speak for myself, long history in the media. Irma's younger than me, so I don't want to say that for her. But we both have media experience, so we certainly can help guide you and give you some directions and stuff like that if you would like to speak to the media on maybe, how to do that. Definitely not what to say, but just some tips and things like that if you would like them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Cindy, I've got hands raised, it looks to me, from Kevin Daly and then also Miss Vaughn.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Kevin.
Thanks. I'm just going to say it. The plans here that we developed may very well be well and good, and they may be well intentioned, but I think serious input and serious consideration should be given to allowing frontline teachers and frontline nurses and frontline counselors and bus drivers and custodians to at some point provide impact and input on any plan we might agree on. And I'm just gonna, a lot of people may not know, but some people know on the call that any change we make to the working conditions of an employee of the school district is constitutionally guaranteed bargained issue. And so I just wanna kind of advise against the idea that this group is going to come up with a plan and it's going to be what it is, because the two unions, Talc and Spalk, certainly have the constitutionally guaranteed right to bargain working conditions. And also, I think any plan that's not developed with a really serious examination by the employees that are going to have to implement it, no matter how well intended it looks in all of our views, will not have the confidence and faith of the employees to carry it out, and will probably be less than ideally successful.
Thank you for your comments, Kevin. And just as a reminder, the purpose of this committee is just to make recommendations to the superintendent. They would not be, quote, approving the plan, but making recommendations on the plan that would go forward. Dr. Atkins, did you have anything else that you wanted to address regarding that?
Yeah, just I do know that I think Ms. Stillwell is working to include some additional staff members onto this, particularly teachers. And I believe, and I don't want to speak for Ms. Vaughn, but I also think that was something that she wanted to see happen as well. So we do hear you, Mr. Daly, and know that we'll be continuing to work with Talc moving forward, and Spalk, of course.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn.
Okay, two quick things. Number one, I'm glad Mr. Daly brought that up, and thank you, Dr. Atkins, for recognizing the fact that after hearing from several teachers, administration at the district did respond very positively, and I know Ms. Stillwell is working on that, because I feel the same way that it's the teachers and some of the other personnel that have been, I call them the boots on the ground, that may even get together and give a presentation or however. Actually, the original question that I had is, Ms. McClung, you said that the survey results would be shared with us at the next meeting, but I was hoping that we would be able to get them at least 24 hours before the next meeting, just so that we can have a chance to digest. Is that possible?
Absolutely, yes. So you have a chance to look at them and be prepared to discuss them. Yes.
Okay, so at least 24 hours before?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's what I wanted to ask.
Quite welcome.
I have a hand up from Jamie Michael.
Okay, and Ms. Michael, for just a minute, there was a request through chat about having access to this presentation, and you will receive it tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Jamie.
I write, so I'm writing down names and who goes with where. And the one thing, I know this is a pre-K-12, but we don't have anyone on here from the vocational schools. And I know we have employees at the vocational school, and it's a different setting. And I don't know if they're having their own group or if they should be included in this one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Dr. Spiro obviously can represent them to some extent. We will certainly discuss whether we need an additional member for that. Thank you. Okay, were there any other hands up? Okay, seeing none. The last thing
Marcus Goodson had his hand up.
Okay, thank you. I cannot see them. Mr. Goodson.
Let's see, can you hear me?
Now we can, yes.
Okay, you stated earlier in the presentation that you've had a committee established since March, I think made up of school staff and professionals. Have you put together a draft of recommendations or suggestions from that committee that's been working since March that you want a new set of eyes to look at, which hence the new members on the call today? And have you considered, perhaps in that draft, did you consider looking at universities and how they're going to put together a re-entry plan? I know it's different. University campus is different than the school district's campuses, but there could be some important recommendations in there that could be used from FGCU or any other university that you could access some information from.
Okay, let me take the first part of that. The team, the pandemic team that was an in-house team was basically our chiefs and our communications director, Beth Whiff for our health side, and myself, and did I leave anyone else? Oh, and our legal counsel. And honestly, when we first started, it was, what do we do tomorrow? Trying to make sure that we were meeting things as quickly as we could, getting some sort of a work schedule for every employee group so that everyone knew what their responsibilities were and so that we could continue paying people throughout this, addressing how we were going to get students education going quickly, get them online as quickly as possible, how to get those the Chromebooks out, the hotspots out. So at the beginning, this was a put out the fires immediately task force. and I'll tell you, the team did just an amazing job in a very short period of time. Once we had things established, then obviously thoughts did turn toward, okay, so now what are we going to do next when we need to open? And they have been working on some plans, but those are still just in the draft stages, which you'll learn more about at our next meeting. But they have looked at a lot of different districts. I know they have looked at what universities are doing. Dr. Spiro has been looking at academics. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Dr. Spiro?
Thank you, Ms. McClung. Yes, just like you said, we've started just some ideas to bring to this task force. There's been no other task force prior to this team. So this is going to be the first group outside of our internal team that's really going to get a chance to look at some of those ideas that many people have helped put together and really help us formulate what's going to be best for our local community, our local workforce, and certainly what's going to be best for our students as a whole.
Thank you. And Dr. Savage, did you have anything you would like to add?
Oh, not really too much at this time, Will. I think there will be a lot more substance for us to put forward on the next meeting as well. A lot of things to evaluate, a lot of critical decisions. But yes, a tremendous amount of work offline, not just with our team, but then with our staff level units that were out there, whether it's the transportation, whether it was feeding the students, whether it was the cleaning protocols, whether it's all manner of things that have been working very, very hard in this past time. But we're looking forward to bringing forward a lot of options, some recommendations, and just framing some of the critical things that have evolved from other states, other school districts, and certainly from the higher ed as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. All right, then to wrap us up, I'd just like to do a real quick plus delta so that as we plan for next week's meeting, we can take the things that seem to work for you and make sure we continue those, and then anything that you can think of that we could do differently that would enhance this meeting. So we'll start with things that worked well about today's meeting. Excuse me. I see a chat that says the agenda, so having the agenda ahead of time. Thank you. This is fun.
I'd say we had excellent attendance for a first time meeting.
Yes, it's great to see so many people. Tell you, we tend to have better attendance at our Zoom meetings than we do at our in-person ones. Okay, I have some chat here that I'm going to read. The agenda, Jamie's getting kicked off. Sorry, Jamie. Clear and concise objectives, getting presentations in advance, clear information and thoughts, great statement of purpose for the group. All right, thank you. Okay, so what can we do next time that would make this meeting run better for you? And Adam Malloy, here to promote strategic reopening of schools, deliberate and with purpose. Thank you. So what would help you become more engaged next week or feel more comfortable with the team next week? Oh, Jamie's clarifying it's the first meeting her internet did not kick her off. Congratulations, Jamie. Thank you. All right. Well, feel free to send an email to me. It's cindykm@leeschools.net. Anytime you have a question, we will be sending out that survey tomorrow, and we'll get a Zoom invitation out to you as soon as possible. And with all the information, we'll also send the presentation to you. Anything else that we owe them?
We'll give them survey results when we have them.
Yeah, as soon as we have the survey results, we'll get those out to you so that you have time to look at them, but at least 24 hours in advance. All right. All right, Dr. Atkins, do you have anything you'd like to say before we sign off?
There we go. Wanted to make sure I was unmuted. Well, I think if you really think about the task that's in front of us, it's a pretty massive task. You're talking about how are we going to safely bring back 96,000 students, 13,000 employees, along with the all of the community members that interact with our schools on a daily basis. So this is a pretty massive undertaking. These are unprecedented waters that we're entering, and so we have to make decisions that are informed decisions, and that's why your participation is critically important. So we've tried to get experts in the areas where we really think that we're going to need some expertise, and as well as get feedback from our shareholders. So that's why we have students involved, we have parents involved, we have staff involved. So whatever we can do to keep you all engaged, please let us know. But I also want you to know that, on behalf of myself and I don't want to speak for Ms. Vaughn, but I think on behalf of the board, I can safely say that we sincerely appreciate every one of you taking the time to help us with this very, very important undertaking. This is where I see different communities reacting a little bit differently. I mean, even if you look at the survey results over in Miami-Dade versus the survey results that we seem to be receiving here in Lee County, they're very different because our communities are very different. And so we need to hear from the experts in our communities before we get out there with a final decision. Like I think was said earlier on, we hope we're full opening in August. I mean, that is what we would love to see happen, because I certainly miss the kids and the staff, and I know the kids miss their teachers, and while I'm sure our parents are enjoying having them at home, I'm sure they would also enjoy having them at school as well. So we want to make sure that whatever the model is, that we have the best model for Lee County, and that's where you're going to come in. And so again, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and hope that you stay very, very engaged, because we really need your help. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We will see you next week. Have a great evening.